Well, they branched their way out. Madison was the first stop. I mean, for some reason, they were getting it in the Fox Valley before we were getting here in Milwaukee.
That's bullshit.
I agree.
Screw those guys. No, we love the Fox Valley. No, screw you guys.
Make up your fucking mind, Jim. Love them, hate them.
Might be the cold open there.
Cheers.
You've stumbled on into the Tap Takeover Podcast.
Welcome to the Tap Takeover Podcast Tasting Edition. Today we're here in the Solid Non-Fail Studios, and we are going to be sampling a craze that has turned into a style, the New England Style Hazy IPAs. So Alex, why don't you tell us what we have on the docket today?
Well, we've got three friends of the show. We're going to be going through some of their hazy beers that we may or may not have tried during our interview process. And then one hopefully soon to be friend of the show. So we're going to start off with Eagle Park. And then we're going to go into 1840, both doing great things. Pulpit Rock out in Decorah, Iowa will be our third tasting. And right after that, we've got the Brewing Projekt, the hot commodity, the one that everybody's talking about. We got three of their newest, freshest IPAs. So this is going to be really exciting. Jim, tell us a little bit about the style. We've talked with Anello about it. He thought it was a craze. That was last year. This year, it's turned into a style. Tell us a little bit about this style.
Yeah, so there are distinct characteristics of this now style. One, of course, is it's got to be a little hazy or unsettled. And that's really coming from the use of unmalted grains, such as wheat or oatmeal, as well as you use some low flocculating yeast, usually London Ale 3. Also, very soft water is used in this, so you don't have much of the bitterness accentuated, but you have a lot of hop flavor. So the third part is hops, and a shit ton more hops. So usually it's none in the boil. It's all hopped afterwards. So double dry hop, triple dry hopped, and then usually a couple more now just to kind of make it over the top. And then usually a blend of about 3 is kind of another characteristic. Some are doing more, about 4, but 3, usually a lot of Citra and Mosaic to give it that real character of citrus.
And some are doing less, like the Brewing Projekt is doing the single hop series, so it's still hazy, but it's just focusing in on that one hop. There's also, Jesus, maybe you can speak to this. There's more of an emphasis on the juicy end than the kind of the old West Coast style.
Yeah, definitely. It gets away from that bitterness. I know there was a long time where these IPAs just went in your face hops. The IBUs were like through the roof. It was crazy, and really just that bitter taste that these new styles actually, it's a citrus, juicy, and it's really tough to even call an IPA because you present it to somebody who hates IPAs and they love this beer. It's a really approachable beer, but it still has the complexity enough for beer nerds,
Yeah, and I think the only reason we still call it an IPA, and I agree with you on this, Jesus, is because it is hoppy. But really, I mean, it shares a lot more characteristics with a pale ale than it does with the traditional IPA.
And it's pretty cool that it started on the exact opposite coast from the West Coast style. This is the East Coast or the Northeast style. So let's get right into it. What are you guys thinking about this Demon Haze from Eagle Park? We're doing a side-by-side, so we've also got the new fun name from 1840 Brewing.
Yeah, so similar beers, but I think they have a little bit different hop mixture. I know the Demon Haze has some El Dorado, which gives it definitely a enhanced kind of papaya, mango, citrus, tropical fruit flavors.
So for me, the Demon Haze, it does have that little bit of bite still in the back end, but it's a very soft bite. It's welcoming almost. It makes it more of an IPA than a pale ale. And the new is just so soft and pillowy in your mouth. It's just a fantastic beer. It's hard to believe it's 9%.
For me, the Demon Haze is very similar than when it came out. So I think it's been out 3 weeks-ish, and I think the characteristics are still there. It had that little bite and had it when I got it fresh. That new, I thought it had a bite when it first came out. But like you said, it's actually, you don't think of, I don't want to say a falling off aspect to it because that almost means it's bad. But this is very smooth. It's great. I love this beer.
Like the yeast has still been working, and some of those flavors have blended together. And I will agree with you, Andy, that the Eagle Park, the Demon Haze, does have a little bit of a bite. And I think that's an aspect of Eagle Park's brewing that's pretty consistent. Even their haziest beers still have that little bit of a hop bite. I remember definitely that was the case when Eagle Park in 1840 got together and they did their joint series, which was a beer that they agreed on the recipe and then went to their separate breweries and made two different versions of basically the same beer. And Kyle is definitely more on the juicy hazy, and Eagle Park is definitely more on the little bit of bite to that hazy. So it's really interesting to see how these two Milwaukee breweries are doing the same sort of style, just a little bit differently. For me personally, I like the new a little better. I like that juicier sort of aspect to it. There were some experimental hops that Kyle's using in this thing, which I think are really shining through. I'm getting flavors of like fruit punch and, just all kinds of juicy stuff. Not to say that the Demon Haze is bad. It's fantastic. This is a beer where if you see it out on tap, grab yourself a Demon Haze, because nothing at Eagle Park is this hazy that I've seen.
This is like 1A, 1B,
I think one thing we can all agree on is it's just a great time to live in Milwaukee with two breweries knocking out stuff like this. Jesus.
It is really fantastic. And Jesus, you kind of touched on something I think is it's time for a pro tip with hazy IPAs is drink them fresh. And that's really maybe a fourth characteristic of these beers is that you absolutely have to drink them fresh because of the way they're made. With the dry hopping will drop off, or the hopping will drop off very quickly within 60 days. So you got to keep them cold, drink it fresh.
That's true. I've tried beers at a bar in a keg. I've had it 1 week and it was super hazy. The very next week, it's almost a clear beer. I had to ask them, is that the same beer on tap? And they went and checked. It definitely is. Yeah, something to look out for.
All right, so let's move on to our next set of beers. So up next is Pulpit Rock. We've got two really great beers from them, Decorah Sweetheart and Rhyme Animal. We had a great time down there at Decorah, just after visiting Toppling Goliath. Still an up-and-coming brewery, but they're doing some really fantastic things down there. So, Alex, what are we actually drinking here?
Well, I got to say, it was really fun to be down in Decorah at Pulpit Rock, speaking with Bob and Justin on their 3 years and 1 week anniversary. Right now, we've got a double IPA, which is the Rhyme Animal, and a single IPA, which is the Decorah Sweetheart. So, it's kind of a double versus single here. Maybe just a hair more alcohol in the one, maybe a few bigger flavors, but it's not like it used to be, where there's going to be a bigger malt backbone on the double than there is on the single. I think the maltiness is going to be about the same on these. It's usually not very big on these New England style IPAs. Let's get into these. Andy, what are your first impressions of the Decorah Sweetheart?
Very, very tasty beer. It's nice and soft, traditional New England style. Not a lot of bitterness. There is a significant more bitterness on the double, I believe. And I think it's the perfect name for a beer because the way social media talks about Pulpit Rock is they are Decorah's sweetheart. A lot of people would rather visit there than Toppling Goliath when they're out in Decorah.
Yeah, and they've come a really long way from when they first started. They themselves admitted to that. When they first started putting out beers, they were a little more hit and miss. But now, after their 3-year and 1 week anniversary, their game has been definitely elevated.
And it's really interesting to be in town when, two great breweries, the only two breweries in town so far, but two of the better breweries in Iowa are both doing special release stuff. Toppling Goliath, it's interesting because they started off small like Pulpit Rock did, a small renovated space, and now they've gone on to build their own bigger space. And what you see there is Toppling Goliath has kind of become the Goliath of the town. They're the big brewery now. And so Pulpit Rock is, it's in the shadow, and it's doing some really fun, really small batch stuff. Toppling Goliath is focusing on bigger batches and trying to make a national imprint, whereas Pulpit Rock is still the local neighborhood brewery. So it's fun to see the two approaches. Jesus, what do you think about the double versus the single here? Do you have a favorite?
Well, I don't have a favorite, but I think they're so different. That double IPA is it's got a bite. It's definitely intense, and if I don't know the alcohol on these, but it just seems like that one just has more, or it's more. It's a bigger beer, definitely. The single, I almost think of it as like a cousin of the previous two beers we had. It's in that vein, very mellow, very smooth, citrusy, but the other one just has that pretty intense bite.
And it's interesting too, the different hops that they're using. So in the Decorah Sweetheart, it's a Citra and Vic Secret, and on the Rhyme Animal, it's a Citra, Mosaic, and Vic Secret. And I really do think the Mosaic adds something.
Maybe that's what it is. The Mosaic. It's pretty intense for me, I guess. I've been having a lot of these citrusy IPAs lately, and this one just the bite surprised me. It's not bad. It's not bad at all.
It's a nice contrast being from the same brewery that you can get one that's away on the juicier end and another one that's on the bitey end, and they're both fantastic beers.
I'll tell you one thing that I noticed when I had the two beers on tap is that the Decorah Sweetheart had just a touch of an oniony flavor on tap, which I'm not getting at all in the cans. So I'm sure it was the same batch, but might have just aged a little differently. Jim, how does that oniony flavor kind of happen? Is that something on the hot side, or is that something on the double dry hop side?
Yeah, it will. That can occur on the hot side there during the boil, so they may have put a little bit in there. Probably the whirlpool was a little hot when they added it in. It's also the amount of Citra that you put in too. If you really put in a lot, that can come across. They probably put a whole bunch in that whirlpool. Whirlpool's still a little too hot, and you'll get some of these, I don't want to say off flavors, but some of the side flavors that can come along with Citra.
All right. Well, I think it just goes to show, as we said very often in our Decorah Pulpit Rock episode, if you have a chance to get out there and try some of these special release beers, make a date, make it a nice little trip for yourself. I think it's time to get into the next beer. All right. So let's talk about the Brewing Project. For my birthday this year, I dragged my girlfriend out to Eau Claire, Wisconsin. It's a 4-hour trip from Milwaukee, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had at a brewery. These guys are doing such good hazies that it's worth the trip. Now, we stopped at Central Waters on the way. We tried a little Unsettled. We did our due diligence on the way out there, but let's talk about the Brewing Project and what they're doing. We've got 3 fun beers here. We've got the Cryo-Citra, we've got the Mosaic, and we've got the Double, which is a double version of the OG, the original. We talked earlier about how some breweries are kind of doing these single hop series. So give us your thoughts, Andy. What do you think of the Citra versus the Mosaic versus the Double?
For me, I like the traditional, the double, the double version of the OG. It's my favorite, followed by the Cryo and then Mosaic. I mean, the Cryo is really delicious on its own. All 3 of them are fantastic. Props to the Brewing Project. They're killing it right now. They're dropping every 2-3 weeks. They're dropping about 12 cases at popular craft beer liquor stores.
Just here in Milwaukee. I mean, other areas are getting more. Madison seems to be getting quite a bit more. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think the double version of the Dare Mighty Things, the original, is, I think, by far the best here. It's the Citra, Mosaic, Amarillo, and El Dorado hops, all the same as the original. This is a fantastic beer. But like you said, the Citra, the Cryo-Citra, and the Mosaic are really doing fun things too. Jesus, do you have a favorite with these?
Well, my favorite's the Double, but I'm not a fan of the other 2 like you guys are. I think that Citra just has a weird aftertaste for me. It just kind of, I don't want to say like bready, banana-y, something weird about it for me. And then I guess the
Mosaic.
And for the Mosaic, I think that's starting to kind of almost level out. It's like a little journey with these 3. But the Double just hits it out of the park for me. I just really like that beer, the complexities there, and yeah, I'm a fan of that one for sure. But yeah, that Citra is just not doing it for me.
So let's talk about the juicy versus the bitey. Do you guys think any of these have that bitey quality, or are these more on the juicy end?
I think they're definitely more on the juicy end. I mean, some people had problems like the aftertaste of the Cryo when they did the single hopped Amarillo. I mean, that had the bite of a traditional West Coast IPA and
that
hazy.
Definitely had a bite.
It was super peppery at the back end and had a nice kick to it, and a lot of people were shocked by it.
I'm definitely getting a bite on the Cryo-Citra, but surprisingly, So I'm with everyone on the double being the best here, but I'm really enjoying the kind of orange juice kind of thing going on with the Cryo-Citra. Everybody knows my opinions on Citra. That orange juice kind of flavor come through is just kind of appealing.
It's almost like pulpy. Too.
It is really kind of a pulpy orange juice there with a bite.
It's just one of those things. Honestly, I feel like it just tastes so weird to me. I don't know why, but
I do like that Cryo-Citra. I would say of the two single hop varieties, I think I like the Citra a little better than the Mosaic, which really surprises me because I love the Mosaic hops. It's right up there with the Galaxy for me. You know, you get those big tropical kind of flavors. But for this one, that Cryo-Citra is just bringing the heat. It's got a great flavor. But for me, it's that double for sure. That is definitely the best one we're trying right now.
Well, they've nailed that proper mix of hops in the double. It's just a fantastic beer. It's probably one of my favorites of the night.
it's pretty smooth for a double too. It's like I thought it would be like pretty big, aggressive beer, but it's smooth.
Yeah, this really goes back to how kind of a defining characteristic is that kind of hop blend. I mean, it was a very interesting project to do the single hop hazies, but
No
definitely
pun intended.
Yeah, totally intended.
Okay.
Definitely, obviously, the best beer here is actually a 4 hop blend, which is a little unusual.
Do you guys think that the Double Dare Mighty Things, the DMT as they call it in the shorthand, is the best beer we've tried today, or would you put some of the previous beers up against that Double DMT?
Boy, New is pretty darn tasty.
Yeah, I just love the new. There's just something about that beer. Yeah.
The double DMT is by far and away my favorite, followed second close by the new. One thing I can say about Eagle Park is Demon Haze was it's a good beer, but if they would have had the Galaxy out at this time, the Galaxy is by far and away my favorite beer from Eagle Park. And
I don't know, that Nelson Sauvignon.
They got Goon
New
Juice.
England, yeah, they're doing some other real good ones. I might fight you on which one's the best one.
I guess overall, I've been happy with all of them, except for I guess just something with my taste buds with the Citra Brewing Project, but all of them have been fantastic beers.
All right, so let's wrap this up and kind of talk about what some of our favorites today have been. It sounds like for most of us, it's the Double Dare Mighty Things. For me, right after that, I would say it's probably that Rhyme Animal from Pulpit Rock. Maybe some of the single hops from Brewing Project. I don't know. I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for the Brewing Project. And then after that, it's got to be the new, and then the Eagle Park. How about you guys?
All right. So for me, it was definitely the Double Dare Mighty Things. Then I'm going to go with the new, followed by the Cryo, then probably the Goon Juice. And
Demon Haze.
Which we didn't drink today.
All right. Then probably
The cashmere sweaters also pretty.
And then
Break 'em out.
Trillium, green.
All right, keep.
Orange Julius for me.
We'll have some in December. Ready? All right. Then I'd say for me the Demon Haze and the Rhythm Animal and the Decorah Sweetheart are probably all about on the same level.
Rhyme Animal.
Okay, Rhyme Animal. Okay, so the Demon Haze, the Rhyme Animal, and Decorah Sweetheart are all on the same level for me. So I would call that a tie, and then the Dare Mighty Things Mosaic would follow up at the end.
Yeah, I guess for me it's just a very close horse race. I love the new. I just thought it still held up. Like I said, just a hair fell off, but what changed I loved. And then that double from Brewing Project was fantastic. Then I'd probably throw in the 2 from Pulpit Rock as like a close for me. Yeah, then the Eagle Park, and then the last one is the Citra, that Citra single hop. I just wasn't a fan.
Yeah, for me it's new, and then double DMT. And overall, I think what we can take away from this experience is how good overall the hazies have become here in the Midwest. We've been talking about Treehouse and Trillium and what Vale is doing, but now we here in the Midwest are starting to get some excellent hazies. And the best thing about it is that you got to drink them cold, drink them fresh. After those top 2, I love them all the same. They're all like my children.
Well, I think that wraps it up pretty nicely on our hazy tasting. It sounds like we've got some divergence of opinion, but that comes with having different palates. So I think that's where we're going to leave it. If you have a chance to get any of these beers from Pulpit Rock, from Eagle Park, from 1840, or even if you can make it out to Eau Claire to the Brewing Project, grab some of these beers. They're fantastic, and drink them fresh. I think that's where we're going to end. So for me, for Alex,
Jesus.
Andy here.
And I'm Jim.
that's going to do it for us. This has been another solid non-fail production.